Hello everybody, this is Dr. Samuel Zinner. Welcome to my desk here in the mountain village of Aulla in Tuscany, Italy. Today I want to talk about the Twilight Zone episode 5 Characters in Search of an Exit. Originally aired on 22 December 1961. But before I take a look with you at the transcript, with the script of this episode, I'll basically tell you the plot as quickly as possible. There are 5 characters who find themselves in a round room they can't escape. Right? They don't know who they are. They don't know their names. Right? At the end, they manage. One of them manages to crawl out, to climb out, right, of this circular prison, if you will, or container that they're in. And Twilight Zone specializes in those surprising twist ends. I call them mind flips sometimes. And it turns out that these 5 characters are toys, like dolls. And they're being thrown by humans into a barrel, right, for Christmas, to be given to orphans. All right, this is at first sight and at first view, this is a very strange ending, especially with the narration. But that's, I want to take a little bit of the strangeness away from it, and that's why we're talking to you today. So, let's look at the transcript. I'll get my reading glasses on. All right, so let's start with the narration, the introductory narration that Rod Serling gave. Right, so, clown, hobo, ballet dancer, bagpiper, and an army major. A collection of question marks. 5 improbable entities stuck together into a pit of darkness. No logic, no reason, no explanation. Just a prolonged nightmare in which fear, loneliness, and the unexplainable walk hand in hand through the shadows. In a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys, the whats, and the wheres. We will not end the nightmare. We'll only explain it. Because this is the Twilight Zone. All right. As far as the literary influences on this episode, 5 characters in search of an exit, the first one is Marvin H. Petal's unpublished story called The Depository. It's unpublished. I haven't been able to access it. But in any case, we do know that the title, 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, right, was informed by Pirandello's 1921 avant-garde or absurdist play, 6 Characters in Search of an Author, right? So we can assume that Rod Serling had read the play, right? And then the 1944 Paul Sarte's No Exit, right, which... all right, that is set in hell. The characters in No Exit is set in hell. All right. In the Pirandello play, what we have is the question, right? Are these actors or characters real? Right? Or are they simply characters in a play? Are they real humans or are they just characters in a play? Right? So that's the question there, and that's somewhat similar, right? Now, when we remember the end, that these are all dolls in this 5 characters in search of an exit, right? Then we see that this is anticipated, right, by 2 Twilight Zone episodes: the After Hours, right, where humans turn out to be mannequins, right? That was in 1960, and then earlier, 1961. The Shadow Play episode. Extraordinary episode. Powerful episode. Right? And there, the humans turn out to be dream characters, right? And that's actually one of the possibilities raised in the dialogue of this 5 characters in search of an exit. All right, so there are a lot of questions in this episode, right? And as we already heard, each of these characters is a question, because these are 5 question marks. But in any case, there are these questions. Who are you? What are you doing here? Then where are we? What are we? Who are we? Right? The main protagonist is the Major. None of us knows Major. We don't know who we are, but he's the last one. Right? So he comes in late. He falls down from the sky into this, what turns out to be a barrel. Right? He first encounters the clown and then the other 3. So he makes the group into 5. Right? So the Major asks them, where are we? What are we? Who are we? Who are we? None of us knows, Major. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we are. Each of us woke up one moment. Here we were in the darkness. How could this happen? That's the question we've asked ourselves, a question with no answer, Major. Nameless things with no memory, no knowledge of what went before, no understanding of what is now, no knowledge of what will be. How long will we be here? The Major asks. That's a very good question. That's the best question of all, but nobody knows the answer. This is a very existentialist transcript. Right? So, where are we? What are we? Who are we? Why are we here? We don't know where we are. Each of us woke up one moment. Here we were in the darkness. This is an allegory, of course, for human life. Right? We're thrown, according to the existentialist philosophical approach, where birth is a being thrown into life, into existence. Right? And we don't know why we're here. Just one day we're here. We're born and we're here. So you can imagine what the infant is, quote unquote, thinking and feeling. Right? Probably in shock, right, at being born. Right? So this play is really, on the surface of it, is an allegory for human life. Right? And at one point, also, right, the Major asks, what's up there? Right? Because they see, beyond the top of this, what turns out to be a barrel, and there's sort of a dim light up there. Says, what's up there? You name it. It could be sky, artificial light, fluorescent lamp, an illuminated microscope, you name it. One guess is good as another. Right? And so that's also an existentialist approach. Right? How are we to understand life? Right? Well, one guess is good as another. Right? Maybe we're on another planet, or maybe we're on a spaceship going to another planet. Well, that's appropriate for Twilight Zone. You got to throw in some sci-fi. But then maybe we're all insane, or maybe this is a mirage, an illusion. We're dead, and this is limbo. We don't really exist. We're dream figures from somebody else's existence, like in the Shadow Play episode. Or we're each of us having a dream, and everyone else is part of the other person's dream. Right? You call it, you can have it, right? And then we're trapped down here. There's no way out. This is a nightmare. So, right, a very existentialist approach, right? That should be clear. At one point, the Major realizes, ladies and gentlemen, it seems very apparent, it seems quite unequivocally, all of us, we are in hell. God help us, we are in hell. Right? So that's very much right in line with Sartre's no exit play. Right? And all right, so and at the end, the clown, after the Major escapes, right, out of this, what turns out to be a barrel, the clown says he may have been right at that. He may have been very right. This may be hell. And then this is immediately when it switches to the outside scene, where it's revealed that these 5 characters in search of an exit are all dolls being collected for orphans at Christmas time. All right, so now here is this, at first sight, at first view, a very strange closing narration. Just a barrel, a dark depository where are kept the counterfeit make-believe pieces of plaster and cloth wrought in the distorted image of human life. Now here's what's strange, but this added hopeful note. Perhaps they are unloved only for the moment. In the arms of children there can be nothing but love. A clown, a tramp, a bagpiper, a bagpipe player, a ballet dancer, and a major. Tonight's cast of players on the odd stage known as the Twilight Zone. All right, so is this a cheerful ending? Right? But this added helpful note, perhaps. No, you have to understand this. This is perhaps. I think it's ironic, and it's to be taken with a grain of salt. Perhaps. That would mean perhaps and perhaps not. Perhaps they are unloved only for the moment. All right, so how are we to understand this? We are to understand this through the prism of the opening narration. Let's listen to it again. All right, in a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys and whats and the wheres. We will not end the nightmare, we'll only explain it, because this is the Twilight Zone. So, the fact that these people turn out to be dolls, and despite this, maybe there's some hope here because perhaps they are unloved only for the moment. This is not ending the nightmare, which means it is still a nightmare, right? So this is actually a nightmare ending, right? And so the point to keep in mind here is not that the toys are loved by children. That's not the point of that concluding narration. It's that we humans are toys, not people, not authentic people, right? So it's a nightmare scenario for those, for there to be these children, which would have to be some entities higher than humans, right? These dolls, right, are really us humans. So the children are going to possess us like toys, right? So there's some kind of higher entities, which is almost demonic, if you will, right, are going to possess us. And we are just nameless toys, thinking we're humans, right? So we're not talking about something cheerful, right, like 1964, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right, with the island of misfit toys, right, where they get saved by Santa Claus and distributed, right, to the children. And so the misfit toys, are now happy. No, this is a nightmare ending. This is not Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? So we're given the cue at the beginning. We're going to understand the whats, wheres. We're going to have clues, but it will not end the nightmare. It will only explain it, right? So at the end, right, I think most people just totally misinterpreted, right, what's going on, right? That perhaps there's a hopeful note. Yeah, perhaps not, right? Because there's no Santa Claus going to take the lonely toys off the island of misfit toys and they'll be happy. No, the point is that we human beings are not really authentic. We're like toys and we're nameless toys being in the possession of these above human powers beyond us that control us, that possess us, and we remain nameless, right? But we know that it's a nightmare, right? Like in Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit, they figure out they're in hell, right? All right, it's not too cheerful, right? But it is, right, for the heyday of existentialism, the popularity of existentialism, right, in the 1960s. Right? But I think that the whole thing about perhaps their being unloved is only temporary. This has to be thrown in at the end of this Twilight Zone episode, because without it, it would just been too existentialist, too harsh, right? So I'm reminded of the very first Twilight Zone episode. Where is everybody? It was known that there was this idea, well, maybe we can end this on a sort of a supernatural note. And the person who has been in this container being tested, right, for loneliness, endurance, for outer space flight, who calls someone on a payphone at one point, right? And the idea was, well, maybe let's have him rip out a page, right, with a phone number on there. And at the end, when he's let out of the loneliness endurance chamber, he finds it in his pocket, right? But that was too radical, actually, for the ending, right? It was considered too radical, so they kept it, non-supernatural. So I think they had to add this thing about, this hopeful note, this mention of a possible hopeful note at the end for a similar purpose. Otherwise, it just would have been too dark. All right, so, well, maybe Serling was right after all. But it's still, he lets us know in the opening narration, this episode is a nightmare. At the very end, it's still a nightmare. We haven't ended any nightmare. We've only explained what's going on, which is it's a nightmare. All right. So maybe it's time to watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. All right. Thank you. Bye.